Welcome to Just Some Points, episode 3 today. I'm Thomas Hofstetter, managing partner at Points, and I have who with me?
Rory Devlin, head of digital marketing.
Great. So today we don't have Melissa with us; she's with the client. So a couple of things I brought. Actually, I brought two things today, and maybe you have one of them. I don't know what you brought, but
We'll find out.
we talked about Twitter changing the rules a couple of weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
And sure enough, Google followed up this week.
Yep, I saw that. That might have been on the list here.
Might have been, I guess so. But I think it was, was really important, especially with all the impeachment stuff going on and everything going on online. I thought it was interesting that they followed up so quickly after Twitter. And it really made me think that it really certainly puts pressure on Facebook. I'm anxious to see, how long it will take Zuckerberg to do something. And they can't just sit back with a policy or with what he gave out as a policy.
No, this really puts pressure on, and they're going to have to rethink their approach. I was looking at it a bit, and it's interesting. So Google, they're still going to run political ads. They're going to make it a lot harder to make them effective.
They just, for people like you, they just take the details away, right? You can't just, what they do, you can't target the people as much anymore.
Yeah, so you won't be able to upload email lists, things of that nature. So the targeting's not going to be as effective.
What targeting, do you know what targeting they leave in?
I'm not sure. I imagine they're going to limit most first-party data options, so you can't upload any phone numbers, email lists that would then be matched to the Google profile.
I see.
Yeah, so
you could do that before.
Yeah, and so the campaigns were highly effective. But
so their mailing address, their mailing database, they basically uploaded them into Google.
Yeah.
And then say target those people.
Yep, and you could build lookalike audiences off of those. So they're still going to allow political ads, and they've stated that they. If there's ads with false content, they're going to flag them. They'll take them down. But they also say, listen, we can't sit here and fact check every political ad that's being uploaded. So they're not taking the same stance in Twitter in the sense that they're saying, hey, they can make the claims we want. We're not going to do anything about it. They're saying we're going to do the best we can at finding these false claims, any false claims, and taking them down. And they specifically mentioned deep fakes and doctored photos. So I think we'll see a lot there.
And I think that is absolutely right. I think they have to do that. And I think it's also fair to say we can't put the whole burden on them that they have to discover all the that they do all the fact checking. But in a way, they do this already in healthcare because we deal with that in healthcare already, that they are very restrictive. When we create new ads, they really look at them, and very often our ads don't go through at the first try.
Yeah, and that's a good point because Google said, and it was almost another dig at Facebook, they said, listen, if ads don't comply with our policies, we're going to take them down, and that means false claims.
That's right.
We can't make false claims in healthcare advertising. They can't do it in politics either.
Right.
And then that's a completely, that's in stark contrast to Facebook's stance, which says they don't let us make false claims on Facebook ads with our healthcare ads. We can't. They flag them all the time. But they say in the case of politics, they're okay with it. So that's a very strange stance for Facebook to be taking.
Yeah, and I'm anxious to see how they will deal with this because, last week we talked about Facebook rebranding.
Mm-hmm.
Now here it is. Okay, you can say whatever you want, but show us, how you act.
Right.
Because it's not what you say; it's what you do.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll see how this shakes out.
I'm sure we'll talk about this again in the next few weeks.
Yeah, of course.
So what do you have?
So anybody who's running any campaigns on Google Ads, they've certainly gotten emails in the past week about the California Consumer Privacy Act.
Okay.
And this is going into effect in January 2020, and it's part of a larger trend that we've seen globally where, governments are just making moves to protect private data.
Is this on the heels or similar to what went on in Europe last year?
Exactly.
This year?
So there's been a lot of comparisons drawn. It's not exactly the same, but there's a lot of comparisons drawn. Overall, the same goals.
Will that have an impact on companies like us that develop websites?
So it doesn't directly impact us in most cases and companies of our size, but what's going to happen is it's impacting a lot of large companies like Google, which then we see trickle down we'll see impacts in the way that we can run our campaigns, in the way that Google collects data, and the ways we can utilize that. So there's
So
certain.
will it restrict Google to collect data?
Yeah, there's certainly going to be
Because
some.
at the end of the day, what it might do, if it doesn't restrict Google, what happens, Google continues to collect a lot of data and just exposes less to companies like us.
Right. Yeah. There's always going to be that. I think that trend's just inevitable. It feels like.
Yeah.
There's some of the criteria is like businesses with over 25 million in annual revenues, or businesses that derive more of half their business from consumer data. So those are some pretty clear terms.
Okay.
But this is only in California, but this is something that we expect to kind of. They're setting the blueprint for other states to adopt, and hopefully we do see this kind of roll out nationwide, so at least we get some sort of standard here, and we know what we're working with, not just on state by state.
It's necessary. The politics is way behind on regulating everything going on online.
Yeah,
it's wild west.
Yeah, it is. I like to say that the internet's still the Wild West. Not everybody agrees, but
I think it is.
Yeah, it is in a lot of ways.
It's just, and all fairness to politics, the pace of change is so fast that it's very difficult to keep up as a regulator to with all of that. But because of that, I think you need the major stakes have to be put in the ground, and one of it is data privacy, and the whole privacy policy. And I personally always believe that data long term are something that are owned by us. Mm-hmm. It should be, because my data is it's mine, mm-hmm. and I should be allowed to make the decision to who I expose it. Yeah. I might be willing to sell my data, but it should be my decision.
Yeah.
And and I should have the benefit too, not others.
Yeah. And there's a lot of interesting trends, with respect to that too. There's the new browser, Brave browser, where they block ads through the browser, but then they work with publishers that then publish ads through the browser. So you're blocking traditional display ads on mm-hmm. sites. You're allowing publishers to advertise through the browser, mm-hmm. and you get rewarded from the browser.
Oh.
So you get monetary rewards essentially for your attention. That's how they're saying it.
Yeah, it's changing, and all those new business models, again, it's we keeping the regulators on the toes. I want to shift gear. Today I was thinking I'll bring something. It's not necessarily news from the last week, but certainly news of, there's a trend in healthcare. And it's related to, actually very much related to digital marketing, and that is healthcare on demand. Healthcare on demand is really on the rise, and we work more and more with companies that are in that space. In fact, we just kicked off a project where we're doing a business plan for one of those companies that will kick off next year. And I thought it's just interesting, how the consumer behavior, and I would say in this case, we mainly driven by younger generations, mm-hmm. change how healthcare is being consumed. Because healthcare on demand, what it is especially you buy your healthcare services the same way as you buy other consumer products, mm-hmm. and you do this either online or you do it on the phone, and it's incredible that all those new trends also now offer, you go back to the roots. When I grew up as a kid in Germany, we had the pediatric doctor come home to us. Mm-hmm. Guess what? It's available again in big metropolitan areas like New York. You can actually order a house call, mm-hmm. and you get it with the same day. It's incredible. Yeah. I can call in the morning and said, I have the sniffles, or I have the flu, or I have whatever. I want to have a doctor come to me. And for $199, or I think it's even cheaper, within a few hours, you have a doctor mm-hmm. knocking on your door, and servicing you, and that's great. And those services go away from the practices with brick and mortar. Mm-hmm. We have had clients. I had a conversation on that a few years ago. They said, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I think it would be a big market, actually.
Yeah, it seems to be happening. It's definitely what I would consider like an interesting response to what can often be seen as a cumbersome, ineffective healthcare system that we have, and it's certainly interesting.
But because of that, I also think that like digital marketing and healthcare will continue to grow. Mm-hmm. I think while they restrict it more and more, I think it will be very difficult in the future to be too restrictive, because the services move online and digital and mobile. So they can't just shut the doors more and more, because if you say healthcare services are being consumed like regular consumer products, then you have to allow it to basically market it like consumer products. So it will be interesting to see what's going to happen on that.
Yeah, and just in general, lowering the barrier to healthcare with telemedicine. I mean, in the past year alone, we've seen huge changes.
Actually, we talked about it yesterday. Amazon Health.
Yeah, Amazon. If you go to Amazon.care, it's their healthcare solution for their employees, and that's what it incorporates: is telemedicine, home visits. So pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
So Facebook.
Facebook?
Yeah, they've released dynamic ads, which is something Google Ads had for a while. Facebook has not, and they just released them this week. So
ads with variables? So what is that?
Yeah. So you can set multiple headlines, and they're going to serve the headline that their data is telling them will perform best for that individual person seeing the ad. So, I mean, Facebook advertising is already highly effective, and
so putting us in our shoes, just conversation we had this week when we talked about certain target groups and said, how about this headline? How about this headline? Mm-hmm. Now what we can do is, here are the 5 headlines that we think all are good, and we let them decide which one is really the best, because based on who they serve it up to.
Yep, and it's not even necessarily it's A/B testing, it's individualized, right? So it's by person, it's serving the headline that it thinks will do the best, or according to its data. And there's, it'll serve, you can select multiple ad types. It'll serve the ad type that resonates most with somebody. So it'll be interesting.
It will be interesting to see how the performance will be, because we have good success with Facebook ads.
Yeah, and there's always the trend of like these advertising platforms saying, hey, why don't you, hands off, we'll take care of this for you. So I don't always subscribe to that. I think when you have things manually, in your control, you can see if you're plugged in and doing a good job, you'll see better performance than you would with some dynamic ads. I certainly don't use them very often for Google advertising, especially in healthcare, because that could create some headaches.
Right.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how effective these are, and certainly we'll be experimenting with them.
Yeah, sounds good. Yep. So it's interesting. It's like Facebook keeps coming out with headlines that makes money for them and doesn't drive benefits to the consumer. So
yeah.
But again, I'm sure we'll keep talking about Facebook in the next few weeks.
Of course.
So I think that concludes episode 3 of Just Some Points. Hope you thought it was interesting. See you next week.